And in those words that my son had said, I find the final conclusion of my journey as a man of flesh. For with the granting of this, his most eloquent request, the salvation of mankind is finished. And in this determination, Messiah is the end of all mankind, and they are returning to the land of their nativity of their soul. And in him is the final fulfillment of all the forms, elements are taken in the many delights of creation. And the final word of faithfulness is granted to all the holy angels, the Kadoshai. And in his last request, all the workmanship of my lovely kindness is brought to a final and full fruition. For this one, who is both my son and the Son of Man, has by his walk in flesh and in the midst of eternity become the definition of all human virtue. So now, him being called the Son of Man is more like him being called a role model of man or God in flesh. So when you are calling Ezekiel the Son of Man, he was an exceptional, virtuous, and faithful man who was exemplary, especially in that time when Israel had lost its way. They were whoring after other gods and other nations' ways of life. So now, if you look at this expression here, let's start. I find the final conclusion of my journey as a man of flesh. So God is saying now his journey as a man of flesh, meaning as Messiah, for with the grant of his most elegant request, the salvation of mankind is finished. And this determination, Messiah is the end of all mankind. So Messiah is the end of all mankind. In Messiah we are justified because he walked the walk that we walked in flesh and in sin, but he walked it clean without sin. And they are returning to the land of the nativity of their soul. And in him is the final fulfillment of all the forms element is taken in the very delight of creation. So the very body that we blame for our sin, the very nature of our being that we say tempted us, he got into the very same body and nature and walked without sin. So he became the definition of the end of mankind, so to return to the land of their nativity of their souls. So he became the definition, the very definition of a redeemer that he was destined to be, because he worked in perfection of ways. And the final word for faithfulness is granted to all the holy angels. So all the workmates, the angels who kept the law, because the religion, the religion of Shabua, or the religion of love, is expressed, is the definition of the holy angels to covenant to always love Messiah and love the men who he became, or all those who are made into the image of God, and covenant to always support Messiah and his mission. So that's why I say the final word for faithfulness granted to all the holy angels, because at this covenant of Shabua, the angels, their fate were sealed. Those who are sealed in holiness became holy. So the 2/3 became holy angels who will support Messiah unconditionally. And the 1/3 fell away with Satan or became the Satans who covenanted to reject the covenant of love when it was established by Shem, who we call Melchizedek, who the father called Michael. So those became the Satans. And in his last request, all workmanship of my loving kindness is brought to a final and full fruition. So now, when we say Messiah is Son of Man, we mean that through his works, the workmanship, and through his expression of love or loving kindness, all his work is justified and bear full fruition, or bear the highest level of fruits any man can bear or any soul can take. For this one is both my son and the Son of Man. Has by his work in flesh and in the midst of eternity become the definition of all human virtue. So when we call you the Son of Man, we mean that your walk in flesh, your walk as a person can, with your same walk that you walk here, you can be translated just like Enoch into the heaven, and you still walk the same walk because you walk in holiness, although you're in flesh. And that's why it said, Son of Man. It means that you have become the definition of all human virtue. So when you keep all human virtue, the very definition of human virtue is equated to a son of man. Because for you, you walk like an angel. Because for you, the eternity, which is the home of the angels or the sons of God, and the temporal world, which is the world of the working of the flesh, to you, it's like you bridge the two by the absolute human virtue standard or expressions that you keep. Therefore, if you go up a little bit where we started, it means let's just read 54. So it means that patience, you are patient, you are humble, you are steadfast, you are honest, you are charitable, you are kind, you are selfless. So all these expressions of virtue are found in you and are expressed by keeping the law of the Spirit of holiness. So therefore, if you keep this level of virtue to this maximum or highest standard, you cannot stay in mortality without being translated, just like Enoch, unless there is a mission you are doing. Because for you, the way you live, you have breached the virtue. You are keeping the level of virtue that is kept in the midst of eternity while in flesh. Therefore, that's why God takes pride to say, you walk like him, because he became the son to become the Son of Man, or the shepherd. So the Son of Man, in conclusion, means your virtue is equated, your expressions of virtue and your keeping of the law of holiness is equated to the holiness of the Father, although you are keeping it in flesh. And your level of commitment to expressing virtue and the law of holiness, of spiritual holiness, is a reflection of the exact replica or reflection of the virtue that is kept in the midst of eternity, in the dwelling of the Father. So I believe that's the definition of Son of Man. It means all expressions of human virtue and all expressions of the law of the Spirit of holiness are found and dwell in you. Thank you.